Hey everyone. I'm gonna. Oh, there we go. Gonna just turn the volume on the game down. Okay, so I wanted to do a kind of short video while I was thinking on it because. Okay, so I gotta kind of explain what kind of just happened. I got my picture up, and I wanted to do a video like this where it's more of like a like kind of like a personal thoughts, like impressions type thing, while just like gameplays in the background. But I wanted to bring up something. Let me just double check to see if the yeah, I'm gonna just bring the game volume down even more. Um, so I was on Twitter, like it's kind of later at night, and I checked Twitter and I see that there were things going on talking about it. I saw some rumblings about it like earlier in the day, but I didn't really look into it too much. And there was a thread that Joe Merrick of Serby started writing up talking about uh, is Meltan from the Pokemon that you can catch in Pokemon Go. I still need to evolve a Melmetal for my Let's Go series, but that's beside the point. Like I'm still working on that, but I actually like interacted with him a little bit on Twitter, which and I kind of brought up the weird idiosyncrasies with the way that Pokemon are kind of labeled. Um, like there are some weird things, like in Gen 1 how none of the Pokemon that are like in that list like actually like there's some weirdness of like how the Pokemon are actually like listed in game and how they're listed in the data. Like for instance, like the Rhyhorn line, I believe is technically the first one in the Pokedex, like in the data, but is not really, like truly listed like that in game. And as time has gone on, they've basically figured out better ways to kind of list their Pokemon better, but they still have some problems in the game data. And Meltan and Melmetal, which are currently listed under many websites as Pokemon entries like 808 and 809, I believe. I believe is that's where they are in the national decks. But in a recent thing, they showed off a bunch of Gen 8 Pokemon for like this game, and they showed off Meltan, which is weird considering that they've actually like when talking about Gen 8, they've oftentimes listed Meltan and Melmetal as Generation 7 Pokemon. It's kind of Game Freak's. It's all up in the air of whether or not Game Freak wants to kind of like reclassify their Pokemon, but there does come about like a weird, some weirdness in it. But again, this video isn't actually talking about that. I more wanted to talk about a very distinct aspect. And since the DLC is coming up, I can't actually show it off. And the Pokemon that are in the game, I don't actually have on this one. I should actually. Now that I really think about it, I probably should have brought up Let's Go instead, because that would have been a little bit easier to show off. But we have a sort of problem in Pokemon right now, and it all comes down to they need to kind of reclassify the entire Pokedex from like Gen 1 and up. And it mostly comes from problems that the game has that have never been able to be fixed, because if they were to fix it, they would cause other problems down the line when it comes to reclassifying certain Pokemon. The best example of this is is the Nidoran line, where if you were to have a Nidoran, either male or female, you take the line for it, and you basically move. Okay, so if you're trying to basically breed something in the Nidoran line, there are some weird aspects to it. For instance, if you were to breed one and it's female, it automatically becomes the female Nidoran, which is classified as a different Pokemon in the Pokedex, which is more of a problem because of the limitation of Gen 1, but because of a lot of problems that kind of rely upon what I'm going to just refer to as they didn't have the capacity to program gender into the game. But you kind of see this with the Nidoran line, and you kind of see it within the sort of design documents of Kangaskhan, in which you kind of have problems trying to classify Pokemon in the first generation with this. Like, it's not too big of a problem overall, but this whole thing kind of made me kind of think about, should Game Freak reclassify certain Pokemon in the Pokedex? This mostly stems from a quirky aspect of Gen 2. In fact, most of these problems come from Gen 2. If I remember correctly, you could only find Murkrow in the wild if you actually go back to Kanto, which is kind of strange when you really think about it, because if you could only find Murkrow in Generation 1, sorry, in Kanto, wouldn't it be a Generation 1 Pokemon? If you... would that make... And since Meltan was first introduced in a remake of Gen 1, would that also be a Generation 1 Pokemon? You know, like, weird stuff like that, where it's like... should... Like, again, this all stems from the question of, should Game Freak reclassify the entire Pokedex? Because there are some weird things, especially like in Gens 1 and 5, in which they should better reconstruct the entire Pokedex. I don't think they're going to, but I'm currently under the belief that they should anyway. And it's not even really about I don't want to say like a moral thing, but it's more of, they need to make their Pokedex, especially in Generations 1 and 2, a little bit more clear. I honestly believe that this is a problem with no good answer, considering that if they were to reclassify the Nidoran line, so like Nidoran male, Nidoran female are one Pokemon, and based on their gender they evolve into a new Pokemon, that's gonna cause some problems down the line when it comes to, like, okay, so just from that Pokemon alone, you have a situation where now everything gets moved down one number, meaning that every piece of Pokemon merchandise that is related to a Pokemon's national dex number is gonna be changed. Nah, I won't catch it. So again, we have sort of like catch-22 where it's like, they could and they probably should, but they're not going to. And I think the main reason why is because there's no real incentive for them to do so. I honestly believe that I honestly believe that if I was able to make a sort of ROM hack, I would do those kind of things where it's like I would reclassify Pokemon to evolve into certain others. I would make it a little bit more connected. Let's just say there's no good way for me to explain it. Considering that this is a rambly video at like 3 in the morning, like, you know, it kind of makes sense. Oh, yeah, it's this, there's a, Milcery sort of event going on. But either way, I just wanted to talk about this because I found it was kind of interesting, and yes, it is kind of a rambly video, but it's just sort of my thoughts off the top of my head, and I figured that I would, you know, like, do that kind of thing more often. So, yeah. So all I'm gonna say is that we will truly know what Generation Meltan is when Pokemon Home comes out, and we're able to actually, like, search per generation. And if it does in fact list them as a Generation 8 Pokemon, then that's that. But a lot of people consider Let's Go to still be a Generation 7 game. So, your guess is as good as mine. They could effectively say, yeah, but any game that is on the Switch is considered Generation 8. You know? That's just my sort of thoughts. I wanted to make like a kind of a weird. Sorry, I was tripped up by the thing on screen. I just wanted to make like a quick video talking about my thoughts. Leave your opinion down below, because I kind of want to hear what other people think about this, because I hope I'm not the only one who feels that Game Freak has been kind of lacking when it comes to retrofitting? Retrofitting isn't the word. To Game Freak kind of fixing some inaccuracies in previous generations. So let me know what your opinion is down below. I guess I'll see you guys later.